Vault 440 Audio presents Ash Rats, Stories from the Wasteland, a Fallout audio anthology. Episode 5, Marcus, the Soldier.
We were supposed to be 5 clicks north by now. Clean insertion, tight formation, no surprises. Ground fire came out of nowhere. Institute tech, too accurate to be raiders. They knew we were coming. Mission compromised. Drop zone lost. Doesn't matter. We adapt or we burn.
There are a million stories in the wasteland. This is one of them.
The world is sideways. The cockpit's a twisted cage of fire and broken glass. My HUD flickers, recalibrates, red warnings flashing across the display. Impact detected, structural integrity compromised. Hector, Rook, and Reese made it. Their power armor blackened and dented. Brotherhood sigils half melted from the heat. But they're moving, returning fire, one dragging Dex from a collapsed bulkhead. The kid's not even supposed to be here. The door gunner's crushed under the cabin frame, legs pinned where the turret assembly sheared off. No chance. The pilots, nothing left to check. Half the cockpit's buried in a wall that used to be a building. It was supposed to be a quick rendezvous. Transfer the sensitive data to a second gunship. Keep it off the ground, out of reach. Where it was headed, classified. Even I didn't know the details. My job was simple. Get it to them, hand it off, and get out. Now we're scattered across a dead street, fighting ghosts. Laser fire snaps across the wreckage, the white-blue beams carving lines through the smoke. Synths in the streets, more than a dozen, advancing fast, precise, rifles already locked on the wreck. I stumble out of the fuselage, armor servos hissing. The impact crater's a maze of debris and flame. Every surface glows with heat. The 3 surviving knights fan out, instinct and training taking over. Reese moves left toward the broken storefronts as Rook takes the high ground of the collapsed roofline. We don't need to speak. Rounds slam against the armor plating. Red flashes across the visor. The sound sharp and metallic. I drop behind a section of the engine cowling, debris raining around me. The synths close in, cold, white eyes in the smoke. The others return fire. Disciplined bursts from their lasers, glowing streaks cutting through the sky. I see Hector go down, hit center mass, armor flaring bright where the plasma burns through. Reese is pinned behind a concrete slab, trapped. I've lost track of Rook. I'm out of frags. My rifle's depleted. I'm now down to my sidearm. Every sound echoes differently now. Sharper, distant, like the world's already moved on without me. Once men dropped fire from the heavens and burned the earth clean. Centuries later, we're still fighting over the ashes, pretending there's something left worth saving. More synths. Another small platoon coming from everywhere. Overtaken. Surrounded. So this is how it ends. Buried under steel and smoke, same as the world before us. Funny thing is, I've been climbing out of the ruins my whole damn life. I was born out of the ashes. The wasteland was my cradle, and everything I am grew out of its dirt. I don't remember much of the early years, just the sound of wind pushing through hollow buildings, the bite of sand on my face, the way my mother's hands shook when she tried to light a fire. My father wore the uniform once. Not Brotherhood. Some old military outfit that was supposed to bring order after the bombs, before it all fell apart again. He'd go out on patrols, said he was keeping us safe. One day, he didn't come back. No grave, no answers, just absence. After that, my mother started to fade. Jet was everywhere. I remember her eyes going glassy, her words losing shape. Some nights she'd talk to the air, whispering to ghosts that never answered. Then one morning, she was gone too. Wandered off into the waste like so many others. I was maybe 15, old enough to know better. Too young to stop her. I don't know if she made it far. I don't know if I want to. I learned early that the wasteland doesn't care. You eat what you can find, sleep where it's quiet, and pray you wake up before something else does. I thought that was normal, the only kind of life there was. It was at this point I made a pretty important decision in my life, one that saved my life. I joined the Brotherhood. There was this friend of mine, Daniel. He started with the same thing most kids out here did, nothing. No real family, no safety, just growing up fast because the world around us didn't give much choice. We grew up scrounging together, sneaking through old ruins, pretending we were soldiers from the world before. We used to watch the Brotherhood patrols when they came through. Those towering figures in power armor, the way the ground shook under their boots, the glint of vertibirds cutting through the sky. They looked like gods to us. When my mother disappeared, there wasn't anything left holding me in that place. Daniel said he was going to enlist, that they were taking recruits out near the old Cambridge police station. I went with him. Figured I'd rather die fighting in armor than starve in the dirt. They didn't make it easy, but we kept coming back, working, training, proving ourselves until one day we weren't just watching the vertibirds fly overhead, we were riding in them. Daniel didn't last long. The wasteland takes who it wants, no matter the armor. But by then, I was in. The Brotherhood was all I had left. Sometimes I think about those days. The noise, the training, the endless drills. The smell of gun oil and ozone. I thought I'd found order. Maybe I just found another kind of war. And when the fighting starts, when the lasers light the air and the ground shakes under my boots, I almost feel like I belong. Like this was something I was born to do. This mission was different. We'd all said that before, but this time, the words carried weight. Command called it Priority Alpha, intelligence that could change the course of the war with the Institute. The kind of op that didn't just shift lines on a map, but rewrote them entirely. We'd been fed plenty of stories like that over the years. Every target, every retrieval, every cleanup run was always vital to the future of the Commonwealth. But this one felt different. You could sense it in the way the briefings ran long, the way the senior scribes argued behind closed doors. Even the paladins kept their voices low. The intel was simple on paper. A lost Institute data core, buried somewhere in the ruins of Cambridge, holding research that could tip the balance. That's what they told us anyway. We didn't get the full picture. We never do. We were just told to find it, secure it, and bring it back. No margin for error, no collateral, no excuses. I remember the night before, sitting alone in the barracks, staring at the mission brief glowing on the terminal. Classified headers, redacted lines, and a list of objectives that barely told half the story. It was the kind of op you didn't ask questions about. You just geared up, followed orders, and trusted command to know why. The others were scattered around the deck, cleaning weapons, running diagnostics on their armor. Even in the silence, you could feel it, that weight before deployment. No one said it, but we were all thinking the same thing. Missions like this never stayed clean. Something always went wrong. It felt like a line we weren't meant to cross. By dawn, the hangar was alive. The calm from the night before was gone, replaced by the roar of engines and the metallic clatter of power armor boots on steel. Everyone was ready. We moved with purpose, the kind of rhythm that only came from repetition and necessity. I felt the weight of my armor lock into place with a satisfying hiss. Servos humming as the HUD flickered to life. Across the deck, Reese was loading crates of ammo into the hold. Rook slamming a new fusion core into her armor with a grunt. And Dex was double-checking the relay module strapped to his pack, the one carrying our classified payload. Pilots and deckhands shouted over the roar of turbines, motioning with those glowing batons, guiding the vertibird into position. The air stank of jet fuel and ozone, hot wind whipping dust across the hangar floor. One of the pilots gave us a thumbs up from the cockpit window, his helmet visor catching the light from the rising sun. The engine screamed, drowning out everything. For a moment, I looked around at the squad. No words, just nods, the kind that said, "We're ready." The door gunner gave us a quick grin. An elder stepped out from the hangar, the kind of man who didn't show up for anything routine. He scanned the deck, then locked eyes with me. He gave a sharp nod. Mission green. The rotors cut through the gray morning haze, the city just a jagged silhouette on the horizon. I remember watching the wasteland crawl by beneath us. Broken highways, rusted cars, and the skeletons of buildings swallowed by dust and ivy. From up here, it almost looked peaceful. Almost. We passed over an old ruin I recognized, the shell of a high school half buried in sand and time. Daniel and I used to sneak in there as kids, slipping through cracks in the gym wall and exploring what we could. We'd spend hours inside, sitting by broken windows, thumbing through whatever books we could find. Half the pages were gone, the rest yellowed and brittle, but the pictures were still there. Faces, cities, food, laughter. The old world frozen in paper. Sometimes we'd pretend we were there, living in those pictures, safe and clean and whole. Back then, I thought the world could still come back from what it was. That was a lifetime ago. Before the Brotherhood, before the armor, before I learned that playing soldier and being one were two very different things.
Out.
We dropped through a curtain of fog, engines echoing between hollow towers. The city was waking up, not the living kind, but the hum of synth relays, distant patrols, things that never slept. We were Alpha Squad, the Brotherhood's little cleanup crew for things you didn't tell your neighbors about. Special ops for high sensitivity recoveries. 4 knights in heavy power armor, and a scribe tech for the data link. A small team is a quiet team, an effective team. Names stick to you in war. You learn the cadence of a man's breathing, the length of his reload, the way he swears under pressure. They become part of the machine. Reese was the kind of steady you could set a clock by. Long service lines on his armor, a face that had stopped trying to look surprised at anything. Rook is our long-distance threat, crack-shot sniper, the kind of soldier you wanted at your back. Solid, steady, and hard to move once she set her stance. They called her Rook because she only moved one way, forward. Hector held the kit no one else wanted. Comms, welding tools, explosives. He could jerry-rig anything to keep us going. The scribe tech, Dex, the new kid. He had eyes like a man who read too much at night. He didn't wear armor, but what he lacked in plating, he made up for in nerve and brains. You don't need a steel shell to have steel in your spine. That was my crew. I'd trust any one of them with my life, and they'd already proven they'd do the same. The vertibird dropped with practiced precision, rotors carving a wind that pulled dust and dead leaves into a small storm. We were ready for the usual. Everyone expected a fight as soon as the skids hit. Tracer lines, sudden eruptions of gunfire, the first volley to tell you where hope went to die. Except, it was quiet. Not the tense, holding breath quiet before a firefight. Not the kind that means ambush. This was too clean, like someone had turned the world down a notch and left the light on. It made the teeth in my jaw ache. I learned long ago that silence in the wastes never meant peace. It meant waiting. It meant something listening. Without talking, I gave signals. Alpha moved like a single animal. Cover, clear, move. Reese slid left along a short concrete wall, eyes scanning. Rook checked the corners too quick for comfort, and then eased her speed. Hector crouched near the rear, tools clipped to his harness. Dex took cover behind a rusted-out van, head buried in his scanner. The city was nothing but bones. Gutted towers, glassless windows, streets split open like old scars. Once, this had been a medical district, but now it was a graveyard of steel and concrete. The war with the Institute had left its fingerprints everywhere. Collapsed rooftops from old vertibird strikes, melted walls where laser fire had burned through, skeletal synth remains half buried in ash. The silence wasn't peace. It was the kind that waited for the next shot. Gun battles echo in the distance, most likely ragtag rebels helping the fight against the Institute. Dex crouched low, the glow from his handheld scanner flickering against his visor. After a moment, he looked up, caught my eye, and raised 4 fingers, then pointed west. 4 clicks due west. A little further out than we'd like, but we wanted to be undetected. We'll hoof it from here. I gave a nod, and we moved. Even in power armor, you could tell who expected trouble. Reese's suit barely moved, calm, composed. Rook shifted her weight from heel to toe, impatient energy bleeding through the hydraulics. Hector never stopped scanning the horizon for signs of trouble. The silence between us said enough. The ritual words before a drop had long lost their meaning. The wind carried no sound of patrols, no faint mechanical whine from distant synths, just the flit of broken glass and the distant cry of crows that had learned to live where ruins bled into ruins. We shifted into what was left of the city like vultures over a carcass. We came to an old school building, about 2 blocks from our target. Lights reflected off broken trophies of the old world. A trophy case with a cracked baseball, a banner with a school crest eaten by mildew, pages of a yearbook whipping in a draft. For a moment, just a single breath, the memory of Daniel and the cracked basketball court sat behind my eyes. Then training snapped it out like a hand. We made our way down the hallway, desks welded into the floor by melted plastic. Textbooks turned to mush, chalk dust fossilized into the walls. Checking our corners, we turned and stacked up, quietly making our way up an old stairwell into the roof. We stepped out one by one, keeping low behind the shattered edge of the roof. From here, you could see everything. The Mass Bay Medical Building loomed a few blocks west. Half its front collapsed, scaffolding climbing its face like ribs poking through flesh. And it was occupied. You didn't need Dex's scanner to tell that. Rook went prone, her rifle whispering against the concrete. Through her scope, she read off targets in a quiet, steady voice.
Gun One nest at the north entrance. One on Overwatch, balcony 3rd floor. One more near the wrecked APC, smoking a cigarette.
She adjusted the scope again and continued to spot.
Auto turret, front left. Patrol moving east side, maybe 5 minutes between loops.
Looks like gunners, standard loadouts, easy work for Alpha. Intel said the secret lay below, deep in the lower floors. A lab that had originally been a Vault-Tec research facility. A pre-war experiment site designed for studies on controlled isolation and human subjects. After the bombs fell, the Institute scavenged what it could, using the lab for early post-war experimentation, long before it outgrew the space and moved operations to its main headquarters. By now, decades later, it had been abandoned, hidden, and mostly forgotten, except for the dangerous cargo buried inside. We all locked into position, spread out like a single organism, each of us in the slot we'd practiced 100 times. Reese on the parapet, Rook prone with her rifle, Hector flanking left through the rubble. I took center line, eyes on the street below. Dex hung back a few paces behind me, crouched low beside a chunk of collapsed concrete. He wasn't Brotherhood infantry, more scholar than soldier, wrapped in lighter combat gear instead of steel. Gotta keep him safe at all costs. We need him. But to his credit, he stayed sharp, clutching his scanner like it was a weapon of its own. We were ready, synced, silent, waiting. Everyone signaled off.
Reese in position.
Hector ready to rock.
We all waited for Rook's shot to start it off.
Stand by.
Rook lay flat against the concrete, rifle cradled in her arms, visor pressed to scope. Through her lens, the world became a heartbeat. Her breath was slow, measured, and synced. The air between us went razor thin.
Flicking the switch.
The Overwatch gunner on the balcony jerked back, a red mist blooming before he even realized he'd died. His rifle clattered against the railing and vanished into the street below. One down. Reese shifted beside me, the hum of his Gatling laser building low in his chest plate. He sighted the nest at the north entrance and squeezed. The beam tore through sandbags and armor alike, turning the position into molten scrap. The sound rolled through the ruins. Sharp, hot, final. Hector broke off toward the flank, his armor blending into shadow. I watched him descend the side stair, vanishing behind a half-collapsed wall. A moment later, a flash. Then nothing. The east side patrol never finished his turn.
East side secure.
I sighted cigarette guy through the rifle's glow and squeezed. The shot punched clean through his chest. The cigarette hit the ground before he did. A second later, the APC's side hatch banged open. Another gunner spilled out, rifle halfway to his shoulder. I barely registered him before Rook's round took the top of his helmet off. The body crumpled against the doorframe. Her voice crackled in my comm. Calm, but edged with irritation.
Sorry, didn't see him inside.
Dex tucked up to the wall next to me, the scanner's glow flickering over his visor. Reese swung the Gatling toward the building's corner, where an automated turret was spooling up, its sensors flickering red. He didn't give it the chance. The turret exploded and then collapsed in a shower of sparks and molten steel. Dex gave me a tug and motioned 2 fingers. West side loading dock. I followed his point and spotted 2 additional gunners emerging from the doors on the side of the building. I signaled Rook.
I got him.
The gunner slumped forward, lifeless before his knees even buckled. The other gunner raised his rifle, his head searching for a target. Rook's round spun him like a top. He crumpled to the ground, a lifeless heap.
Targets eliminated.
A full sweep in under a minute. No shouts, no alarms. Just smoke curling into the cold air and the faint echo of distant wind. I took a breath, letting my heart slow.
Roof's quiet. Path looks clean.
Rendezvous at breach.
Copy that.
We met at the side door, the breach point Dex had flagged. The straightest shot down to the lab, if the intel was right. It was the route the schematics favored, a service entrance, half buried in rubble, less likely to be watched. Reese and Rook took positions covering the approaches. Calm, ready. I checked my rifle one last time, felt the familiar weight. Dex knelt beside the access panel, popping its faceplate with a quiet twist of his wrist. Tiny sparks flickered as he clicked into the exposed ports, his portable scanner humming to life. I watched his fingers move, precise, practiced, dancing over buttons and dials like he was tuning an instrument only he could hear. The heavy door eased open on its own, just a few inches, like the building was reluctantly letting us in. We stacked up, weapons raised. The hallway beyond was dark, still, but not dead. There was movement somewhere inside, soft, distant, the kind that raises the hairs on the back of your neck without telling you why. I gave the silent hand signal, and we slipped through the breach, one by one, into the quiet that felt more like the inhale before a scream. The gunners occupied the upper floors now, holding the building like any other scrap of territory. They had no idea what lay beneath. The lab had never been a fortress or a marketable loot point. Any Vault-Tec files or containment areas had been sealed off, overlooked, or buried under debris. Any people trapped or experiments left behind were long gone, lost to time, radiation, or decay. To the gunners, this was just another building to scavenge and defend. They had no reason to suspect the real prize below, the kind of thing Alpha Squad had been sent to recover before anyone else stumbled on it. The air was thick with dust. Broken filing cabinets leaned against cracked walls, scattered papers yellowed and curling, and fragments of old medical equipment littered the floor. We moved slowly, boots careful, weapons raised. Silence was our ally. Suddenly, as we turned into the next hallway, a lone gunner spun at the sound of movement, getting a shot off, ricocheting off Rook's armor.
Look out!
Her fist, encased in power armor, connected with the side of the man's jaw, crushing his head against the wall like a melon.
Oh man, that is disgusting.
Rook shook her head and moved on. We pressed forward, quiet, methodical. The next room opened onto what had once been an administrative office. 4 gunners sitting behind overturned desks, each of them firing blindly at the door. Reese didn't hesitate. The Gatling laser's barrel spun, a low mechanical hum that cut through the air like a heartbeat. The room lit up with tracer lines and the scream of metal being torn apart. When the smoke cleared, the gunners lay scattered among toppled chairs and splintered desks. Paper swirled in the air like ash from a fire. Light flickered off twisted metal and cracked glass as we moved past. Boots stepping over the debris, weapons raised. The intel said this wasn't just any office or clinic. Somewhere beneath the rubble, in what had once been the lower floors, was a lab. When the bombs fell and the Commonwealth descended into chaos, the upper levels were abandoned or collapsed. We weren't just clearing the floors. We were hunting a door that shouldn't exist. The scribes had combed through maps, old schematics, even scavenged pre-war architectural blueprints. Somewhere in the concrete and steel, the entrance to the lab was hidden. A false wall, a reinforced hatch, something unknown. We dropped down a cracked stairwell, the metal railing bent and rusted, groaning under our weight. Rook and Hector flanked me, clearing corners as we descended. The walls narrowed. The ceiling sagged in places where fire had eaten support beams, and every step sent clouds of dust drifting through stale air. The deeper we went, the colder the air became, damp and stagnant. The smell of decayed paper, wet concrete, and faint antiseptic hung heavy, a ghost of what the place had been. Medical carts lay overturned, and shards of broken glass glimmered faintly in the light from our visors. Dex's eyes darted between his HUD and the walls, looking for markers, for anything that matched the intel's vague description. Reese paused at a doorway.
Hold up.
I froze, Up ahead, voices, low, casual, too many to ignore. They'd heard the noise from before. They knew someone was inside. They just didn't know where. I raised my hand, fingers curling into a single motion. 2 frags. Rook and Hector got it immediately. Their hands went to the grenades on their belts, thumbs pulling the pins free. On my silent signal, they tossed them in unison, and we dropped behind a fractured wall. The explosions hit just where we aimed. Concrete chips flew, smoke roiled, and the staccato of destruction rang through my helmet. When the dust cleared, the gunners were down, sprawled among toppled furniture and broken walls. They had no idea who or what had struck them. I pushed forward, boots crunching over debris, eyes sweeping the shadows. We moved toward the stairwell at the far end. Each step was careful, measured. Shadows seemed to lean closer, and I could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. The lower floors held answers, and probably danger. We were close, too close to turn back now. We pressed on, descending deeper into the building. More gunners emerged, scattered in the shadows, rifles raised, trying to get the drop on us. One by one, we dealt with them. Fast, precise. Rook's power-fisted punches. Reese's Gatling laser, and a few well-placed frags left nothing standing. Each time I felt the rhythm of the squad tighten, moving as one machine, every action measured and deliberate.
That's it? I haven't even broken a sweat.
The stairwell ended at a lower floor, damp and dimly lit. Water flowing from a broken pipe, reflecting the shafts of light from our visors. We stepped carefully, boots sending soft splashes echoing through the ruins. Dex swept a handheld scanner along the walls, tapping into old schematics he'd recovered. The device blinked at him urgently.
Hold up, I think we got something.
It was Dex's scanner that caught it first. The reading faint, but unmistakable. A hollow ping behind what looked like solid concrete.
There's definitely something there.
The wall was half buried under a collapsed support beam, dust caked thick on twisted rebar. Cracks spidered through the surface, hiding every seam. If you weren't looking for it, you'd never know there was anything there at all. A hidden door, buried in the concrete and forgotten over decades. We exchanged glances. This was it. The entrance to whatever had been left behind in this Vault Tech lab, the place the Institute had long since abandoned. Hector dropped to a knee, unhooked a small canister from his pack, and started spraying, drawing a rough circle on the cracked wall. The stuff hissed as it hit, expanding into a dense white foam that clung to the concrete like wet plaster. He finished it off with a quick X across the center, then jammed a remote detonator into the middle.
If Hector keeps blowing stuff up, there won't be anything left.
Do you see a doorknob?
He stepped back, brushing the dust off his gauntlet.
Time to redecorate.
Reese laughed as he took cover.
Knowing your taste, it's gonna look like shit.
What? I didn't catch that.
The wall buckled.
Look at that.
The blast revealed a narrow stairwell leading down, steel and concrete giving way to darkness. I wiped a smear of dust from my visor and stared into the stairwell. This was it. We were finally at the heart of whatever the Institute had left behind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. I peered into the hole, cautious but curious. I stepped slowly, making my way onto a metal stairwell leading down into the dark. The edges of the steps were clean-cut, Vault-Tech craftsmanship under decades of rot. I took point, rifle up, boots clanging soft against the steel treads. The walls were lined with concrete once painted white, now slick with mold. We passed what was dead synth troopers, half collapsed and draped in cobwebs. Their optics were dark, their limbs frozen mid-motion, as if whatever killed them had done it in an instant and a long, long time ago. We stepped over them carefully, the whole place feeling like it hadn't breathed in decades. A faint light bled from below, not flickering, steady. It pooled at the base of the stairs, glinting off a sealed door, with Vault-Tech's old blue paint still clinging to the metal. Someone had been down here after the bombs. Behind me, I could hear Reese's armor hum as he covered our six, slow and deliberate. The squad moved like ghosts, rifles sweeping, safeties off. I remember thinking how quiet it was, the kind of quiet that doesn't last long. The door at the bottom was heavy, reinforced steel. No labels, no numbers, just flaking paint and a terminal wired into the wall beside it, its screen still glowing a sickly green. The small room around us was tight, walls lined with old crates, stamped with the faded Vault-Tech logo. A few rusted tanks sat along the far wall, the contents unknown. Dex stepped forward, pulling his kit from his back. Fingers worked fast, plugging a bypass line into the terminal, his face lit by that ghostly green glow. The rest of us stayed back, weapons up, air heavy with the stink of rust and ozone.
Almost got it.
A sharp beep, then a click echoed through the stairwell. The door hissed, a long, wet exhale, as the seals finally gave way. Years of stale air poured out, thick with the sour tang of chemicals and dust. Beyond it, the corridor opened into a wide lab space, easily 2 stories deep. Lights flickered on the ceiling, a handful still clinging to life. Desks and terminals were scattered with notes, vials, half-disassembled machinery, everything coated in a skin of dust thick enough to write in. Chairs were overturned, clipboards still open, coffee mugs fossilized in place. We moved in slow, spread wide. My boots left prints in the dust that hadn't been disturbed in decades. To our left stood a row of massive glass tanks, cracked, fogged, half filled with cloudy water. Something floated inside. At first I thought it was human. Then I saw the metal underneath, the framework of a synth, synthetic skin half sloughed off, hanging in pale ribbons. Another tank, another shape. Some missing heads, some with exposed optics, staring blindly at the ceiling. Whatever happened here, they left in a hurry.
Or didn't leave at all.
Reese stopped near one of the desks, his armor light casting a long shadow over something on the floor. A body, or what was left of one, curled up tight against the wall, wrapped in the tattered remains of a lab suit. The skin had dried to paper, pulled tight over bone, face frozen mid-turn toward the door. Looked like whoever they were, they died waiting for it to open. We all gathered around the body. The suit was Vault-Tech issue, cleanroom white once, now yellowed and cracked like old paint. A sidearm lay a few inches from the curled hand, still pointed at the chest. Rook crouched beside him, visor light catching the pistol's faded serial marks.
Looks self-inflicted.
The bones underneath the suit looked brittle, sunken. The fabric fused to skin that had turned the color of parchment. No blood, no sign of a struggle. Just one last decision, made a long time ago.
Take a look at this.
Hector was standing at the far end, his light cutting across a reinforced door built into the concrete wall. No markings, just heavy weld seams across the edges, rough and uneven, like someone had sealed it in a hurry. He glanced back at me through the glow of his visor.
Only one way in or out, boss. Looks like someone really didn't want visitors.
I told him to light it and cut it.
On it, boss.
Hector removed the cutting torch from his pack. The old weld lines shimmered under his torch, sparks throwing long shadows across the lab. I watched the edges of the door glow orange, feeling the weight of the place press down. Whatever was behind that door, I wasn't sure we wanted to meet it. The last line of molten metal split, and the door gave a low metallic groan before slamming down onto the floor with a thunderous crash. A cloud of dust billowed out, mixing with the sharp scent of scorched steel. Beyond it, a narrow corridor, swallowed in shadow. The overhead lights flickered erratically, some dead, others sputtering with weak pulses of power. The walls were clean once, now streaked with black soot and the faint traces of handprints leading away from the door. I raised my hand, signaling forward. They moved slow, weapons up. Hector took point this time, his heavy frame leading them through the hallway, every footstep echoing like it didn't belong here. Dex hung close behind me, flashlight shaking slightly as it cut across the corridor walls. A half-collapsed sign on the wall read, "Research Control. Authorized personnel only." Dex stopped.
Hold up, I think this is it.
Dex stepped past me,
Yep.
crossing into a glass-fronted office whose walls were cracked but still standing. Inside, terminals lined the back wall, all dark except one that blinked with a faint amber standby light. He brushed dust off the keyboard and started working. While Dex's fingers danced across the console, the others spread out. Reese opened a drawer and started rummaging through piles of yellowed notes, scattered keycards, and rusted holotapes.
This one's marked Project Echo containment logs.
He held it up. Rook turned from the doorway, eyes narrowed.
Yeah, and containment never means anything good.
Dex's fingers flew across the terminal, the soft glow painting his face. I crouched closer, rifle still up, eyes scanning the room. The others were rummaging quietly, but I could feel the unease settling in like dust.
Got something?
The screen flickered.
Looks like a playback file. Security logs, maybe?
Dex hit a key, the screen flickered, and a grainy hollow recording began.
Research log entry 4283.
A man in a lab coat appeared, one of the senior researchers. His voice was calm, clinical, but the words were chilling.
Once combined with the organic carriers, the virus will become fully active. Field deployment is unnecessary. The carriers are already in the wild. Activation is pending the final module located here in Mass Bay. Completion without it is impossible. Exposure incidents are mounting. Another technician lost today due to a containment breach. These failures are small compared to what we are creating here. Something that may, if it escapes, end mankind as we know it. I've reviewed every precaution, every failsafe, but the living carriers are unpredictable. They grow, they adapt. I see now how fragile our control is, how easily this could spread beyond the lab, beyond the Commonwealth. We've engineered a weapon, not just against a single target, but potentially against every living human. Paranoia is creeping in. Now they're telling me there's a rogue faction of synths out there. Not institute-controlled, not monitored, not loyal, a breakaway cell. And they know about this facility, they know what we've built. The evidence they sent me, if it's real, they're not just hiding, they're organizing, planning. I have received direct orders from the Institute Director to shut it down at all costs. Seal the lab, do not allow anyone access. He will send assistance when possible. That this project is too dangerous for uncontrolled hands. I have sealed the outer corridors, welded doors, reinforced bulkheads. But the tanks remain. Dozens of them. Dormant, yes, but alive in its own way. I do not know how long they can remain contained. The thought keeps me awake. If the lab is breached, what we have made will not be ours to control. It will be theirs. And the consequences will most likely be the end of human existence. What the hell? This is getting insane, boss.
Reese was right. I felt a cold weight in my chest. The recordings showed schematics of tanks, vats, and the very synths in the room. Some of them floated half decomposed, but the files hinted that the process was already well underway. Somewhere out there, dormant synths carried this thing, waiting. Containment protocols are critical. If this is released prematurely, it will irrevocably compromise the Commonwealth. Only this lab contains the final control mechanism. Removal or destruction will permanently prevent activation. I swallowed hard, my gaze scanning the room. The corpses in the tanks, the mummified lab worker, the equipment humming faintly. The Institute Director knows exactly what's been made here, knows the destruction it can bring. Yet he ordered it stopped, and didn't destroy it. Why? The thought that the Institute could finish this if they wanted, that this nightmare could still be unleashed at any moment, sent a chill straight down my spine. This wasn't just data anymore. We were sitting on a bomb that had already been planted. Before I could say another word, Hector's voice cut through the silence.
Boss, you're gonna want to see this.
He was standing in a doorway across the room, the beam from his helmet cutting through the dark. I followed, Rook and Reese close behind. The corridor opened into a wide observation deck lined with shattered glass windows. Beyond them, a warehouse-sized chamber stretched out below, lit in flickering strips of pale emergency light. My stomach dropped. There were tanks, at least 20 of them, each towering floor to ceiling, filled with a thick amber fluid. Tubes ran from the tanks into rusted consoles. Next to the tanks, standing in formation and about 10 rows deep, were at least 100 synth troopers, motionless under the dust and flickering lights. Power cores cold, optics dark, but I could feel it in my gut. They weren't dead, just waiting for someone to flip the right switch.
Holy hell.
Oh, this is bad. Very bad.
The room we stood in was no better. Bodies lay scattered around the consoles, lab coats stiff with age, some still slumped over terminals, others curled on the floor where they'd fallen. No scorch marks, no bullet holes, no signs of a firefight at all. Just dropped. It didn't feel like an attack. It felt like a purge. The kind you carry out when the people in the room know too much to be allowed to walk out of it. Their ID badges were still clipped to their collars, swinging slightly in the draft from the ventilation system. The faces on them were smiling. The faces on the floor were not. I didn't say a word. None of us did. But we all felt it. Whatever happened here wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. A cleanup. A warning. And it meant we were already too close to the truth. We just stood there, staring down into the abyss, realizing what we were looking at, what they were building. I asked Hector if he had what he needed to make this place disappear. No trace.
Yeah, I think so. I can rig the auxiliary tanks and drive a thermal cascade through the bay. Hit it right, and you get a sterilizing flash. Everything in that chamber turns to vapor, no trace.
Hell yeah, Hector.
I barked the orders before anyone could change their minds. Gear up. Grab every file, every holotape that looks like it belonged to the project. Get the drive. That node is our insurance. It might be the only way to learn how to stop whatever's already out there. How to counter an activation if it ever happens. We needed that knowledge, even if the cost of getting it was fire and smoke. I wanted everyone ready to move on my mark. Hector already had his hands in his pack, pulling out charges. He tossed a look back and asked Reese for a plasma mine with that excited tone in his voice that said he liked loud solutions. Rook moved like she always did, efficient and cold, slinging tapes and folders into a kit with gloved hands. Dex was hunched over the console, fingers dancing as he started isolating the data drive, muttering about reads and checksum verifications. Hector had already made his way through the side stairs and down to the storage area below, strategically setting the charges with that calm you only see in men who've done it too many times. Dex was crouched by the main terminal, pulling the data drive. His hands were steady until the monitor flashed red.
No, not good.
He froze. That sound in his throat wasn't frustration. It was fear.
I think I just tripped something.
Some kind of silent alert. In the gloom below, rows of combat synths lit up one by one. Chest plates blooming with cold white status lights. No movement yet, but every one of those machines was booting.
Boss? We've got activity. A lot of it.
Suddenly, it went from silent to chaos in a split second. I didn't need time. The decision hit like instinct. I belted out loud and clear, "Pack it up. We're out." The words were short, the kind you don't dress up. I watched them move with the smooth, practiced execution of soldiers who'd done this before. Hector, down in the warehouse, checked his charges one last time.
All charges set.
Hector started making his way back to the stairwell. Suddenly, a lone synth at the front of the formation snapped online.
CQB protocol engaged.
Its eyes burning to life with a cold, electric glow.
CQB protocol
A few seconds
engaged.
later, the next unit lit up,
CQB
then
protocol
another.
engaged.
each one kicking on in a staggered rhythm.
They're waking up! Move your ass!
Row by row, the whole formation began waking like a rising countdown no one wanted to hear.
Contact detected.
That's when the first synths hit the stairwell, charging after Hector. Reese didn't hesitate. He shouldered past me, planting his stance. He yelled at Hector to duck.
Belly down, Heck!
Hector dropped flat, and Reese lit the whole stairwell.
You must be destroyed.
The beam tore downward in a blazing ribbon, carving through the advancing synths and turning the narrow passage into a furnace of sparks and molten alloy. The synths fell in piles, limbs twitching as they slid back into the dark.
On your feet, soldier!
Hector scrambled the last few steps, and Rook slammed the hydraulic bulkhead controls. The door dropped with a heavy thunk, sealing off the stairwell, just as more synths surged upward on the other side. Hector didn't trust it. He yanked his sidearm, took aim, and put 3 rounds right into the hydraulic coupler. Fluid sprayed, the mechanism choking out a metallic whine as it seized.
That should hold them off for a bit.
Moments later, a synth hammered the other side. Then another. Soon, the whole door shivered under the pounding. It wouldn't hold forever. We didn't need to say it. Time to move. Fast. We flowed through the lab like a single organism. Cover, clear, move. Corridors that had been dead and patient an hour ago now felt thin with sound. I kept my head down and my sights up, listening for the wrong noise. We thundered up the stairwell, metal boots shaking the rails. Halfway up, a lone gunner rounded the landing, eyes wide, too stunned to understand what he'd walked into. 4 suits of power armor charging straight at him. I didn't slow, raised my rifle, squeezed. And he folded before he could even scream. We trampled past his body without breaking pace. Only up mattered now. We hit the stairwell and climbed 2 at a time, armor clanking. Rook's voice was calm in my ear.
Receiving new extract coordinates. Stand by.
I nodded and pushed the pace. We reached our original breach point and piled through the door. No theatrics, just motion and muscle, and kept moving until the alley spat us out into open air. Wind hit the scars on the city, throwing dust that tasted like old fires. Rook checked her device once more.
Got new extraction point. 500 yards. Supermart parking lot.
Then flicked a hand toward a stretch of cracked asphalt 2 blocks over.
I've got movement.
A lone gunner leaped from the rubble, pistol raised. I didn't hesitate. The gunner went down hard, a ragged thud swallowed by the ruins. No fanfare, no wasted breath. Then a flash on the rooftop.
Reese! Rooftop!
Another silhouette. Reese pivoted, adjusted the feed, and the Gatling barked again. The roofman never finished his breath. Momentum and molten metal sent him tumbling off the edge in a shower of brick and spent armor.
All clear!
Hector glanced my way, hand on the detonator trigger. I gave him a nod and he hit the switch. The world answered with a deep, rolling thump from underfoot. Once. Then again. Like the heart of the building giving out. Dust and concrete erupted up through the roof like a geyser. A white, choking cloud that swallowed the courtyard and washed across the street. For a breathless minute, the Supermart sign vanished behind the dust. When the air cleared, the lab was a ruin within a ruin. A smoking wound, sealed in concrete. We didn't linger to watch the whole thing burn. We moved 2 by 2, keeping low, heading toward the super-duper parking lot. The vertibird's rotors thumped faint on the horizon, a promise and a deadline. Dust in our lungs, the drive secure, the squad quiet and tight. That was the sound of soldiers who'd done what had to be done, and were already thinking about the next order. We hustled across the broken street, boots slapping pavement, until the parking lot opened up ahead. Cracked asphalt, a crooked sign, empty aisles that suddenly felt like sanctuary. We stacked at the LZ, helmets raised, breathing hard. The vertibird eased down into the space between warped shopping carts and melted signage. No one said anything as the birds approached. and the rotors threw the dust away. We were a bruised, silent pack, carried home on a wing of iron. I watched the ruins of Mass Bay shrink into the haze. One less ghost on the map. No one spoke. Hector sat opposite me, helmet off, eyes half shut. Rook kept her rifle across her knees, staring out into the storm clouds building over the river. Dex clutched the data drive like it was his own heart beating in his hands. Command wanted clean retrieval. We gave them a scorched grave. Still, there was the unspoken weight between us. That drive held something too important, too dangerous to trust even to the sky.
ETA, 6 minutes to rendezvous.
The pilot's update was cut off, replaced by the sharp rattle of gunfire. Tracers stitched the air outside the cabin.
Ground fire, port side, multiple signatures.
Rounds tore through the fuselage, one striking the cabin wall a foot from my head. The smell of burning insulation filled the air. The door gunner swung his mounted minigun toward the blur below and opened up, a storm of red tracers cutting through the sky. But he was firing blind, hitting nothing. Something heavy slammed into us, and the whole bird lurched, tail kicking out hard. The world tilted. Everything went weightless. The engine screamed, then cut to silence as gravity took hold. I remember the horizon spinning. City, sky, river, sky, and then fire. When my eyes opened, it was quiet. Smoke rolled off the broken frame of the bird. Its tail split clean from the fuselage. Rook was dragging Dex out through a torn panel, her armor blackened, one lens cracked. Reese's Gatling lay half buried in dirt. The comm crackled with static. No command, no backup. Just the groan of cooling metal. Now we were back where it started, scattered, bruised, and surrounded by shadows moving through the fog. Synths must be tracking the data drive, or somehow they knew we were coming. Didn't matter. The mission changed the moment we hit the ground. We still had the drive. That meant we were still the target, and we would fight to the death to protect it. Hector went down first, multiple shots disabling his hydraulics. He was doing his best to regain his footing to no avail. He was a sitting duck, but I was pinned down. A synth pushed up through the smoke, going right for him. Reese spun his Gatling and let loose, spitting light and metal in a perfect, brutal cone. He bought us seconds, but there were just too many synths coming up from the rubble like possessed mole rats. He kept shooting, feeding rounds till he went dry. He switched to his sidearm and gave it his best. Rook had found high ground on a broken slab and was a ghost on the roofline. Every shot from her rifle clean and necessary. She kept the close threats off the knights who were still breathing. 2, then 3 synths falling at her crosshairs. Each shot with surgical precision. She was buying us every extra second she could. Dex was a shape on the dirt. One arm draped across his ribs where something had taken a bite. The data drive was clutched to his chest like a talisman. He looked up at me, eyes wide. He begged me to destroy it. Don't let the data survive. He swallowed, his other hand reached for a grenade, like a man half dreaming. I could see what he was thinking. The lab's tanks, the tapes, the log. If they took that key, it wouldn't just be bodies or machines. It'd be the end of a lot of things. He was ready to burn it with himself if that's what it took.
Termination of
The synths closed in, wide and silent, their steps like a clock counting down. Dex's hand clutching the frag. He looked up, gave me a reassured nod, and put his finger in the pin loop and pulled slowly. Just before it released, the sky lit up. Two vertibirds slammed through the smoke line like metal gods, rotors chopping the ash into ragged wind. Miniguns barked as they swept, long streams of lead eating through rows of advancing synths. Rockets traced bright, ugly arcs and detonated in fountains of concrete and heat. The synths that had been marching us into a grave were torn apart in clumps, optics popping and plating collapsing. The air full of the smell of scorched servos and ionized metal. One vertibird went low, wheels skimming the ruin-scattered street as its crew laid down suppressing fire. Brotherhood Knights poured out of its hatch in a black tide. Veterans with the kind of calm that meant your life just got a second chance. They hit the ground running, bearing into the remaining synths with surgical brutality. Another bird circled, then dropped in behind them. Reese found the strength to laugh as a knight next to him took the lead off his shoulders and helped drag him toward the new bird. Rook slung her rifle, sprinted a last few yards, and vaulted into the downdraft, her boots slamming into the ramp. Hector was alive but out. A knight from the support bird broke cover, sprinting towards Hector, body slamming a synth into the dirt without breaking step. He came up behind Hector and hit the emergency release on his backplate. Hydraulics hissed, armor-locking bolts blew, and the suit peeled open. Hector slumped forward, half collapsed. The knight hauled him out of the dead armor and grabbed his harness, half shielding and half dragging Hector toward the evac bird as synth fire bounced off his suit. I grabbed Dex and pushed him into the bird. The kid's hand tightened on the drive the way a drowning man clutches a rope. I looked at him, at the frag in his other fist, and told him, no heroics today. He didn't argue. I peeled the frag from his hand and tossed it away, the spring releasing and going live. The last synths were vapor and scrap by the time our bird lifted off. Night fire kept sweeping behind us, and another bird stayed low to shepherd the smoke. We were a tangle of armor and bleeding seams, hauled into a bird that was already a machine of escape. I found a place to slump against cold bulkhead and let my helmet rest against the padding. Someone, I didn't know who, clapped a hand on my shoulder. Reese was coughing. Rook had one lens busted. Hector's breath came shallow. Dex was strapped down and still asking whether we'd done the right thing. Above the roar of the rotors, I let something break loose that wasn't shame exactly, and wasn't relief either. It was the hard, small truth of being alive. I keyed the comm and gave out a proud round of good jobs as our bird banked toward base, looking out at the smoking smear of the city we'd left behind. For a long moment, the only sound was the vertibird and labored breathing of nights that have been close to the end and had been spared. I closed my eyes and let the world go black around the edges, thinking of tanks and holotapes and the weight of a decision none of us should have had to make. For a moment, the echo of rotor blades and the shudder of gunfire is replaced with a calm silence, saluting ghosts of the men who didn't make it back. The pilots, the door gunner, the ones who kept us in the air long enough to finish the job. We don't hang medals for that kind of thing. We just remember. I awoke in the med bay, in one piece, just tired. The room smelled like disinfectant and recycled air. Sharp, sterile, too clean for the kind of world we live in. They told me it's been 2 days since extraction. Rook's up and walking again. Reese cracked a few ribs but hasn't stopped running his mouth. Dex, he's quiet, disconnected, separated from the data drive. Hector's still in surgery. They said he'll make it, though he'll be mostly metal by the time they're done. When the door opened, the whole room changed. Elder Brandt walked in quiet, like a shadow with purpose. He didn't speak at first, just stood by the end of my bed, looking over the after-action reports on a datapad. I could hear the faint hum of the machines tracking my heartbeat. I hated that it was faster when he was there. He looked at me like I was supposed to feel proud. I didn't. I just felt tired. He said the mission was successful, the lab destroyed, containment ensured. His tone was clean and official. Brotherhood language for we did what we had to. But I could hear something under it, something unsettled. He told me the data we recovered was classified at the highest level, locked down, and moved to a secure vault. Then a pause. That pause told me more than any report could. We all heard the scientists recording. The Institute's own lead had called for the project's termination, said it was too dangerous, that what they'd made could wipe out everything left of humanity. And yet, they kept records. They built machines that carried it. Elder Brandt didn't say it, but I could see it in his eyes. The carriers are still out there. Whatever was in those synths, whatever they were designed to become, the lab was only part of the problem. Destroying it didn't end the threat. It just kept it quiet. For now. He turned to leave, hand on the door panel. For a moment, I thought he was gone. But then he stopped and looked back over his shoulder, his voice low and steady.
You did good, Marcus. Rest up. The Brotherhood is gonna need you.
Then he was gone, the door sliding shut, leaving only the hum of medical equipment and the faint smell of sterilized bandages. I sat there listening to the rhythm of the machines, the faint pulse of my own heartbeat on the monitor. We'd burned the lab, buried the proof, saved the world, or so the report would say. But deep down, I knew the truth. We didn't stop it. We just delayed it. And somewhere out there, walking the wasteland under the same broken sky, the carriers are still waiting to wake up.
What dangers, what mysteries, what madness await beyond the wasteland? Find out next time when a new rat tells their story. Coming up this season on Ash Rats, Stories from the Wasteland. Every survivor has a tale. Every wanderer carries a past. And every episode reveals another life carved from the ruins. Eddie, the detective, a missing heirloom, a family in danger, a private eye who never stops digging until the job is done. Evelyn, the assassin, a hired gun who only eliminates the worst of the worst, is forced to choose between a contract and her conscience. Henry, the outlander, a reclusive hermit, rescues a wounded stranger and discovers the real truth of his identity. Darren, the opportunist, a greedy wanderer searches for a legendary vault that winds up being far more than anything he imagined. Marcus, the soldier, an elite Brotherhood recovery team on a mission to find lost tech, uncovers something far more terrifying. Veronica, the scavenger, a gentle forager who gathers the stories the dead left behind, discovers a new companion and a journey she never expected. Grimjaw, the raider, a ruthless clan chief and his men become the hunted by something relentless and out for blood. Ollie the robot, a small and hopeful helper and his owner, discover that in the wasteland, even tragedy can bring new beginnings. Clint the ghoul, a silver-tongued wanderer with a taste for Nuka-Cola and dusty old novels, sets out to find the motherlode of pre-war books. Noah, the survivor, a man from the old world, lost in time, awakens only to find the ruins of a past he doesn't remember.
Vault door cycling sequence.
Dark mysteries, violent clashes, heartfelt journeys, twisted secrets, hope where you'd least expect it. Vault 440 presents 10 different lives, 10 different stories, all born out of the ashes. There are a million stories in the wasteland. These are some of them.